Turning now to politics, the House Judiciary Committee questioned FBI Director Christopher Wray for 6 hours yesterday, with Republicans accusing the Trump-appointed lifelong Republican of weaponizing the department against them and the former president. Here's a look at Wray's response.
The idea that I'm biased against conservatives seems somewhat insane to me, given my own personal background.
Joining us to talk about this and more is Caroline Heldman, professor of critical theory and social justice at Occidental College. Good morning, Caroline.
Good morning, Kate. Great to see you.
Well, we got to start with Jim Jordan's oversight hearing on the Hill yesterday. Republicans repeatedly attacking FBI Director Wray, accusing him of weaponizing the DOJ, the Mar-a-Lago search, the Hunter Biden investigation. Now, Democrats are calling this all performance art, but I got to say, this probably plays very well with Donald Trump supporters. What was your takeaway?
It's certainly performance art. Both of the parties do it when they are in power or control. It's obviously trying to help Donald Trump, but it's also helping them with their constituents. And as you pointed out, Wray is a lifelong Republican. He is a Trump appointee. And what makes this highly unusual is that just a few years ago, Republicans, and for a very long time, have been strong supporters of law enforcement. So going after the FBI is very much a kind of Trump-directed shift in the Republican Party. But again, this is partisan performance. Wray is a Republican. To say he's biased against Republicans doesn't quite make sense, but it certainly plays to constituents at home.
I know, and it's not unusual for this kind of congressional hearing to turn into partisan grandstanding, but this is talking about the legitimacy of our institutions at this point, and there are legitimate FBI oversight questions that need to be addressed. So are you concerned about what this all means for national security when both parties seem more interested in the politics than the policy?
It's certainly not ideal, but this process, this particular process of congressional oversight over executive agencies is such an important and vital part of checks and balances, the way our framers set up U.S. democracy, that even when I see this kind of partisan grandstanding, I still think to myself, it's important that there's oversight, even though this is maybe being driven by a lot of claims that are being pulled out of thin air. Perhaps they will find something. I don't think they will with this particular investigation, but it's important that Congress maintain some sort of accountability over the executive branch departments.
Well, while Republicans were defending the former president on the Hill, his lawyers in the classified documents case are asking Judge Cannon to delay the trial until after the election, arguing that Trump can't possibly get unbiased jurors as long as he's the Republican frontrunner. What do you expect the judge to do here?
Yeah, that's a hard call. So Eileen Cannon is the judge overseeing this, as you noted, a Trump appointee. Previously, she was rebuked by a Republican panel of judges for overstepping and siding with Trump earlier in this investigation. So I would expect that she will side with Trump, even if she doesn't go all the way in delaying this case, given the kind of flimsy arguments presented. I expect Eileen Cannon to side with Trump as he tries to delay the process at every turn. And it is well within his interest to do so, because if Trump is elected president, all of these investigations go away.
Right, because it becomes a completely different ballgame if he's the sitting president of the United States. But this is not the only case, right? The Georgia grand jury handling the potential indictments for President Trump. They were sworn in this week. This is about the election interference. We've already seen a preview of the potential charges when the four-person went on a controversial media tour. Do you think that charges from Georgia are imminent?
I do. The DA, Fani Willis, has said that if the new grand jury decides to indict Donald Trump, we will know that as early as August, no later than September 1st. So the timeline is here. It's moving up. We know that there are actually two grand juries that have been in panel. We're not sure which one is actually tackling the specific election meddling charges. What we do know is 32 on each. We need 16 to be present for a vote, and 12 have to decide whether or not they want to indict the former president.
I mean, the biggest question here, too, is that Americans view all this from two completely different lenses. I'm wondering if you saw that new AP poll that showed only 22% of Republicans have high confidence that votes in the upcoming presidential election will be counted accurately. That's compared to a whopping 71% of Democrats. This is extremely concerning, right? That less than half of Americans now have confidence in elections.
Yeah, that's a great point, Kate. It is a fire alarm around the erosion of American democracy. And where is it coming from? It is coming from disinformation campaigns well funded from Russia, from China, and from Donald Trump, who has been promoting the big lie. And what happens when you erode faith in institutions like elections, it means that fewer people will believe that their voice matters in politics, or what political scientists call political efficacy. It also means that they're simply less likely to show up at the polls. They're less likely to be engaged in our democratic experiment. So yes, the fact that it's Republicans shouldn't mean anything. Everyone should be concerned when you have a large swath of the American public that doesn't believe that elections have integrity.
Well, and then it also raises the question, right? What incentive is Trump giving his own voters to show up and vote for him if he's telling them that elections are rigged? I do want to get one more question in about the current president, Biden. He got heat from all sides on this controversial decision to send cluster munitions to Ukraine, as they can potentially harm civilians. They're also banned by most NATO countries. Why do you think that he made this decision, and do you think it was the right one?
I understand why he made it. I think it's the wrong decision. In terms of the reasoning coming from the White House, they're saying, look, overall, this will save lives. Also that we're short on munitions, and this will provide an immediate injection. Also that Russia is using cluster bombs, so Ukraine needs to stand toe-to-toe against Russia. I will say I'm really biased. My very good friend Jody Williams won a Nobel Peace Prize for banning cluster bombs back in 1997, and it is shocking that the U.S. didn't sign on to that, given the collateral damage to civilians. So I understand why the decision was made, but I think this will create many, many years of a humanitarian crisis once the war in Ukraine is over.
Right. And defenders of cluster bombs have said that technology has evolved over the past few decades. So that is war. All right. Thank you so much, Caroline Heldman, professor of critical theory and social justice at Occidental College. We covered a lot of ground today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Kate.